Hi, in today's video, I'll be talking about the pre-mentalizing modes of experiencing. So, in my previous video, I explained what mentalization is, which involves taking into account the other person's thoughts, feelings, ability to imagine that, but what happens when that ability goes amiss? What happens when the person is not able to think about their own thoughts, reflect on their own states, as well as another person's mind? So I have called that, not me, Peter Fonagy have called that pre-mentalizing modes of experiencing. And there are various types of it. So let's go through them point by point. Um, so he gave three modes of pre-mentalization. One is psychic equivalence mode, teleological mode, and pretend mode. So, what is teleological mode of experiencing? So, in teleological mode, what ends up happening is the person feels that whatever is physically observable can whatever is physically observable only shows what the other person is thinking or feeling. So let's say if a partner does not reply to texts right at the moment, the person feels very abandoned, and the person feels it's because the other person doesn't care about me. So the evidence of love, the evidence of feelings has to be physically demonstrated to them. For example, when a child who is very angry breaks the toy into pieces to show that, see, this is what anger looks like, as if the child does not have the ability to think that other person can see they are angry through their facial expressions, also through their tone of voice also. So I think this is very much defined in the Piagetian theory of mind, where the person is able to see what is going on in the other person's mind. But let's see, and so there has to be a modification in the physical world. Uh, then only it means there is true indicator of the intentions of the other person. So if a person feels that you have to get me expensive gifts, then only I'll feel that, okay, you care for me or you are there for me. I have written down some examples also which are operational in our day-to-day life, which is I'm only a good person if I get top grades, or uh, examples which I have explained already. And but how does it show up in therapy sessions? So for example, at once what had happened was I had not replied to the text of a patient, and he felt very offended by it, and it almost felt that I had not cared for him in that moment. But the fact that I am there for him every day of the week at the same time, giving attention for the designated time, as if that stopped counting. Or if I care for the patient, then I have to send him constant reminders, constant texts that, oh, I am here for you in the session. And that then the patient feels, okay, the therapist really cares for me. So this shows a lot of teleological mode of operating in the physical world, and it really impacts relationship because the person does not have time to show and demonstrate for it to you all the time, right? The mother cannot come when the baby cries all the time. It's the baby has to start realizing after a while that the mother is busy, she has her own life. And but when that sort of mentalization does not happen, it really impacts the relationship because the things have to be there, shown, demonstrated. So this is teleological mode of experiencing. I have also written down another example of it, how it unrolls in therapeutic setup. So over here, this is from a paper. I'll list down all the papers in the in my YouTube section. So over here, Claire is a patient who asks the therapist that if he had really cared for her, then he would have admitted her to the hospital just like other therapists had in the past. And the therapist gently asks her that if she would want him to do something more for her. And Claire says, exactly, that is what I want you to do. Because if you are not hospitalizing me, that means you are not concerned about my safety. But therapist is very gently exploring it over here, that that what the patient is feeling. And he gently asks her how exactly would hospitalization prove that he cares, so trying to help her come into the mentalizing modes of thinking. As we go ahead in this paper, there the therapist does gently challenge her more, but I have not added that here. Now we'll go to the psychic equivalence mode of thinking. So over here it is also called the concreteness of thought, as in whatever the patient has said, whatever the person has said, that is the only true thing in the world and nothing else matters. And if the thoughts are felt to be very real, if I have thought that you are out there to hurt me, that means you are out there to hurt me. If I feel that you have wasted my time in the session, then you have wasted my time in the session. Even the therapist might be making it a part of the work, steering any conversation to generate some thinking into the patient. But uh, almost like the thoughts become very real. So if a person has flashbacks in PTSD, they become so scary because they almost feel so real. So one's own perspective dominates, and there is a sense of certainty about it. So if a child imagines that there is a monster under his bed, then it must really be there. Or, so the example that I have given before, and there is an excerpt of the conversation which I took out from another paper. So over here, if the patient is saying, you can't understand because you have never experienced what I have. You weren't ill treated as a child, were you? I think I'll have to go to one of those user groups where everyone has had the same experience. And therapist asks him, how do you know that she has never experienced emotional neglect as a child? And the patient says with a lot more certainty, well, you did not. This 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 shows the psychic equivalence mode in operational, that if I know, then I know, then there is no other thing which can be operational. Going forward, the last mode is the pretend mode of thinking. So it's called hypermentalization or pseudo-mentalization. So I had whenever you feel that you are sitting in a therapy sessions and there is a lot of philosophical discussion which is happening, but almost like it's it it almost feels like the um, conversation has become so intellectualized. And if the patient is talking and they are talking, and you feel that there is no feeling to it, it's almost like a news reporter giving you the uh, um, daily report of how the day went, and you wonder, wait a minute, what is happening? So it's almost like there is a dissociation of feelings from the thought. And that is there it can also feel like there is almost a depersonalization which is happening. I have added some examples of it here in a conversation. And so here the patient is going in rounds and rounds. um, if you read it out, that because nothing is really real if you think about it, think, then it all collapses again. And patient is again going on that nothing matters, everything is fine, I'm both fine and not fine. And therapist says, hey, I can't follow what you are saying. And and I don't understand what's going on. And patient says, laugh slightly without affect matching the words. This is called the pretend mode of operational. I have next added few more conversations where I'll be showing where the teleological mode or psychic equivalence mode is operating. So these are separate examples. So I really like this paper because the therapist is challenging as well as helping the patient reflect and come into the mentalizing modes of thinking. um, yeah, so patient says you can't understand because you have never experienced what I have experienced. You weren't ill treated as a child, were you? And this is an example of psychic equivalence. This is an example of psychic equivalence because until and unless you have been through the same exact experiences, you don't know what how it feels to be me. Almost like there is no flexibility, as if the inner world and outer world cannot connect at all through imagination. So this is what leads to psychic equivalence mode of thinking. And I have also highlighted what the therapist says, that the therapist is saying that you feel justified in your formal complaints to the hospital, that all these mental health professionals should not have made all sorts of assumptions about you being okay and not needing help. But when it comes to you making assumptions about me and basing your attitudes to me on those assumptions, it is somehow okay. I'm someone who can be dismissed as just another person who will not be able to understand because you assume that I have not experienced neglect. The conversation goes further. The therapist does ask this patient, okay, how is it different? So the therapist is trying to help the patient imagine the another person's world, another person's feelings and thinking as well. So here is another example. Here, let me highlight it as well. Okay, I can't find the highlighter, but okay. Uh, so over here, therapist is saying that okay, the patient had assumed that nobody is going to understand you before you had even come to this hospital, and the patient says that all of you are the same Lord because you work for the same hospital. So why should you be any different? This shows teleological mode on like almost like concreteness of focus. If everyone is from different hospital, that means they all operate and think the same way. There is no difference between them. So this is the example of teleological mode of operating. This is the psychic equivalence mode. So the therapist is asking the patient, I'll shorten it a little bit. The therapist is asking the patient, then how does a person, what kind of a person does it have to take to make you feel okay, you are being understood? And the patient says that they would have to be like me, I suppose. This again, no flexibility. There is almost like psychic equivalence mode of operating. And another example going forward, um, so there was he this is psychic equivalence mode. I have explained this, but I really want to explain this another mode of thinking, that what are we going to do in all the sessions that we have. I have talked about everything already. I don't want to sit here saying nothing. If that happens, I'll end up feeling I'm supposed to be all right. Almost like this is I have denoted this as in operating in a teleological mode, because almost like it's only through talking, it's only through saying something the patient feels that that the work is happening, not through silence, not through relating, not through rapport formation. So the patient has to keep talking in order for him to feel that something is actually moving forward. So that is why again there is some concreteness of thought happening. Almost to me, it also feels that there is an avoidance of deeper intimacy, which can be built in a therapeutic relationship. So which is why it's so much pressure on talking and talking. So this is called teleological mode of operating. Hope it all made sense. Thanks a lot. Do give it a watch.